You're with Jane Hawtin Live. Should a community be warned when a convicted pedophile moves into the neighborhood? We're taking your calls at 1-800-510-JANE. My guests are Superintendent Bruce Elwood of the Hamilton-Wentworth Regional Police, defense lawyer Karen McArthur, and Monica Rainey of CASE, who is joining us from Calgary 7 in Calgary. And I'm actually surprised at the calls we're getting, because I know, Karen, that you felt that you play the role of the bad guy and that you wouldn't have any support at all. Are you surprised by what you're hearing from people who are concerned about pedophile rights?
I'm not surprised, because I think obviously Canada is a democracy, and we've been educated in the principles of respect for individual rights, and I think that that's what we're hearing is people are saying, yes, we have built up a judicial system that checks people's rights for a certain defined period of time when they run afoul of the law, when they breach somebody else's rights. But once you've played through the judicial system, if the rules mean anything at all, you have to respect the convicted offenders' rights after they've completed their time.
Monica, does this make you crazy when you hear someone defending pedophiles?
Not really, because I think we have to define the type of pedophile we're talking about. There are very few pedophiles that would need to be identified to the community. And in fact, they're probably the kind that shouldn't be released at all, but are by the judicial system. So I'm not supportive of public identification of all sex offenders, because I do believe in community support and that they need help to reintegrate. And I visit sex offenders in prison. I write to them regularly. So I am not a vigilante. But when you've got cases of those that have reoffended, have been hired to work in positions of trust, and have 15 years of offending and no one stops them, they didn't pay an appropriate debt to society, and how many more victims have they created?
Well, you're all terribly reasonable, I'll tell you. Whenever I told anybody about the show we were going to be doing, most people don't care what happens to these pedophiles, and they don't care about their rights. They are not interested in whether they should be protected under a democracy. They just want to make sure that other children don't get hurt. And you can make your comment in a minute. Let's talk to Haiti, who's calling from Vancouver. Hello, Haiti.
Hi. I'm one of those people that are not feeling very reasonable at the moment. I'm not really sure that I care what happens to offenders. I'm a survivor, and I have 3 children. And in a society where we can't let our kids be in the backyard, and so we rely on soccer programs and scouting and organized activities where these people can find volunteer employment without proper screening, who protects my kids? I want to know where they are. I want to know what their backgrounds are. I want background checks. I want police checks. And I don't want to be, you know, the advocate of the poor, unfortunate guy who's gone to jail because, oh, woe is his life. I mean, it may be a mental illness, it may not be. I'm not an advocate of, you've done something really wrong, you can now get off because you have a disease. I'm sorry, it just doesn't cut it with the survivor, it doesn't cut it with a mother of 3. And
Bruce, it doesn't cut it with you either.
No, it doesn't.
You know, and I'm really, really angry that we're still putting offenders' rights in front of 4-year-old children's rights. Children that don't have words, that they don't have someone to say, protect me, that it is parents' responsibility to look after their children, and we put them into the hands of these trusted people, and 90% of these offenders come from these roles.
You feel bad now, Karen?
No, I don't feel bad now. I think what I wanted to say, you mentioned that all 3 of us, Monica, Bruce, and I, seem reasonable. And this caller is saying she doesn't feel reasonable. She is coming from a limited view. She's a survivor. She's got the 3 children. She doesn't have as much understanding about what's available in the system, what creative responses the police and society, the community at large can come up with. And I don't think she has a real understanding about how an offender feels in being released to the community. But the 3 of us are coming across as reasonable because we see both sides of the fence, and I don't think our caller sees both sides of the fence.
Well, maybe you have more faith in the justice system, though, in protecting the community. I mean, you must, or
well,
you wouldn't hold these kinds of views. But
I wouldn't be a participant in the justice system if I didn't think it.
But I know the Stevenson family in Ontario wouldn't feel that way, because their son Christopher was killed by a repeat offender who was let out. In fact, he was doing lectures in the community centers. I mean, obviously, we haven't done a very good job of making sure that these people are cured or they're held back or whatever. So now when there's a suggestion that the community be informed, I don't know whether you've got a leg to stand on in terms of saying that that's not appropriate.
I do. I mean, we have charter rights in place to protect people. It's a fundamental part of our liberties. It's our Constitution to simply release a picture and the address of an offender on the belief you know, they think dirty thoughts, therefore they're going to act on it, is just completely repugnant to me.
Okay. Let's talk to Jennifer, who's calling from Aurelia. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, my name's Jennifer. I work for an association, and I deal with people with disabilities. One client that I do have, he is dual diagnosis, which means he has developmental disability as well. He is labeled a pedophile. He has been convicted and all, but I feel that if people had labeled, or if people do know that he is a pedophile, then he would not be able to do as well in the community as he can be doing. He knows to stay away. Like Halloween, he knows not to go out because there's a bunch of little kids out there. He can control himself, I think.
I think? You think? You think he can control himself?
Well,
that's the problem, right?
For the past 10 years, yes, he has, and he has only done it once. He went to court and everything, was convicted for 10 years. He has not been
reoffended.
Right. He has not put himself in the situation of. But if people.
Well, then maybe he should be free. Shouldn't he be free after 10 years? Should he be free to walk the streets and not be condemned? Bruce?
I think the comment that she just made about he only done it once. How do we explain that to the parents of that child? That it was only once?
Yeah, but if he hasn't offended again for 10 years, then when does he get to be free?
Well, and I think you were saying some of the few things that she was saying to you. I think. Well, you know, until somebody tells me I know, I'm sorry, I just can't support that. But I think a very important point is that we're missing, and Karen said it, and everybody has said it. This isn't a notification we're going to make for every child molester. That each case is particular into itself, and each case is examined. And I know Karen won't agree that probably there should never be a release. But we don't just blanket say, okay, every person that's released from a federal or a provincial institution that has been convicted of child molestation, we put this stamp on that says child molester, notify community.
Well, we do with the Child Abuse Registry, though.
The Child Abuse Registry...
The name goes on the registry, and that register follows that person for the rest of their life. If they try and be, Monica, correct me if I'm wrong here, if they went to work as a teacher, if they went to work in a community center, if they went to do anything that involved children, the name would come up like a red flag, right?
Except the problem we have here is that organizations are not reacting responsibly. They're not doing criminal record checks. And so people are being hired. But you'd like to even
make that mandatory, right? You'd like to make it mandatory for those organizations to have to run the names through a check of the Child Abuse Registry before they're allowed to hire a person.
Absolutely, because I think there needs to be a liability that goes along with someone that's being put in a position of trust who reoffends. The families are going through court and counseling. They should not have to be suing a school district for putting a sex offender with their child. And it's happening all over Canada. And to say that they only have one offense, they usually have 5 times the number of victims they're ever convicted on.
But what if they only have one offense? What if it's only happened once?
They're
still on the registry and it follows them for life.
I can tell you of multiple cases where one offense is what shows up. And in fact, there would be over 100 offenses and maybe 10 victims minimum. So that doesn't cut it with me. Any pedophile that's been in treatment who really understands their addiction will tell you the only way they'll keep from reoffending is not to work with kids. I think that it's pure and simple. There are plenty of other careers that most of us have had to choose as a result of a change in the job market, not as a result of committing a crime against a child.
Okay, Monica, thank you. My thanks to Monica Rainey of CASE. If you'd like more information, you can write to 215-340 Mid Park Way, Southeast Calgary, Alberta, T2X1P1, or you can call area code 403-256-5544. You're with Jane Hawtin Live. We'll be back with more of your calls at 1-800-510-JANE.
I suggest give the people a chance to get out of jail. Let them get on with their lives. If they reoffend a second time, by all means, throw the book at them.